Matthew chapter number 22. And we're going to begin seeing over the next couple of weeks. Jesus is now, of course, this is what we would consider Passion Week in the Bible. Just 6 chapters away from being crucified, buried, and rose again, according to scriptural timeline. And he's got a group around him, and they're going to give him a series of questions that they do not want answers to. And that's one of the things I want to point out as we get into that. There are going to be times that people ask you questions so they can begin telling you how stupid you are when you answer it. And we're going to begin seeing how Jesus masterfully handled that tonight. First section tonight, Matthew chapter number 22, verse number 15. Then went the Pharisees and took counsel how they might entangle him in his talk. And when they sent out unto him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Master, we know that thou art true, and teachest the way of God in truth. Neither carest thou for any man, for thou regardest not the person of man. Tell us therefore, what thinkest thou? Is it lawful to give tribute to Caesar or not? But Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, Why tempt ye me, ye hypocrites? Show me the tribute money. And they brought unto him a penny. And he saith unto them, Whose is this image and superscription? They say unto him, Caesar's. Then saith he unto them, Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. When they had heard these words, they marveled and left him and went their way. 2 titles to this tonight. First, paying tribute to Caesar, and we're going to discuss that. I've also entitled it or subtitled it, Beware when men praise you. Be careful when people try to lift you up and say kind words to you when they usually don't do that. Something is going on. We see beginning on this, number 1, they entangled him with his talk. Jason, what's entangled mean? Do you know? Any idea? Trapped. That's right. Wrapped him up. The purpose of this question and the proceeding 2 that we're going to follow is to get him to say something that he shouldn't say against the government. And then they would have reason to get rid of him. Or to get him to say something against the Bible. And then they do not have reason to believe him. Either way, it's up to him, but they feel like they've came up with the perfect question. Do we render or pay taxes and tribute to Caesar or not? They entangled him with his words. Luke 20, in fact, goes on to say, and they watched him, and they sent forth spies, which should feign themselves just men, that they might take hold of his words, that so they might deliver him under the power and authority of the governor. Luke 20 and verse 21, and they asked him, saying, Master, we know that thou sayest and teachest rightly, neither acceptest thou the person of any, but teachest the way of God truly, Is it lawful to give tribute to Caesar or not? We need to note that it is in vain for the best and wisest of men to think that by their ingenuity, their interest, industry, or even their innocence and integrity, they can escape the hatred and ill will of bad men or screen themselves from the strifes of tongues. Huh? Public school kids, you may be at school or even at the private school. Does the Bible say being homosexual is a sin? You may wonder why they're asking the question. They may turn around and tell the school principal that you're talking about homosexuals and you're being mean in your speech, and they may just be trying to get you in trouble. So the best bet, well, why don't you come to church with me Sunday and we'll ask my pastor and see what he says. There are right. Right. It is written, exactly, and that's the second best way to do it. Here's what my Bible says. Not the words I think, or my dad, or my preacher, or Dr. Hose Knows on the internet. This is what God says.
I like the last verse. Any man from the day before ask you no more questions.
Yeah, we're going to get there. They just, we give up on you. Jeremiah 18:18 says, Then said they, Come and let us devise devices against Jeremiah. For the law shall not perish from the priest, nor counsel from the wise, nor the word from the prophet. Come and let us smite him with the tongue, and let us not give heed to any of his words. So once again, in the book of Jeremiah, an example, we're going to go ask Jeremiah a question to get him in trouble. We're not going to listen to any of his words. That's why I say, young people, even adults, we need to be careful at times to try to discern, are they trying to learn or are they trying to cause trouble? Number two, they sent the trained here. They sent the trained, and they sent unto him their disciples. This is Pharisaical disciples. The people that they're training to go out and proclaim the religion of the Pharisees. I'm going to get there in just a second. Yep, I'm going to get there in just a second. So these disciples are going out and they're trained, and we're going to see and learn tonight that there's people that are trained to ask you certain questions. They're asking that question because they studied and answer more and prepared to rebuke and rebuttal anything you're about to say. But what about this and what about that? And they may have 10 or 12 verses, and they've just blindsided you because you don't regularly study what they're asking you about. The Herodians, a party among the Jews who were for a cheerful and entire subjection to the Roman emperor and to Herod's deputy, and who made it their business to reconcile people to the government and pressed all to pay their tribute. So really, Brother Bontempo, they got a religious leader and the head tax collector before Jesus to ask Jesus if he's teaching his people, his disciples, to pay taxes. Imagine if I was caught on YouTube teaching you on April 7th, that April 15th is coming up soon, and here's all the reasons Americans should not pay taxes. And I admit on YouTube that I'm not paying my taxes. And how quickly do you think the IRS is going to flag me for? That's what they're checking here. Are you teaching people to obey the government? They prepared a speech. I keep saying that. I don't know. I'm thinking the Great. Betsy's going to look it up. She's going to figure it out and just, I don't know, get my attention when he figured it out. Okay? Verse 16. So they sent unto him the disciples with Herodians, saying, Master, is he their master? Do they respect him? So this is blowing smoke here. This is buttering him up. Master, we know that thou art true. Is that a true statement? Yes. Do they believe it? No. Did you figure it out?
During the rule of Herod Antipas, who was the son of Herod the Great, so the Herodians probably served.
Yep. And that in between time, so they're saying things that are true, but they don't believe the things that they're saying, because I would argue if they believed the things that they were saying, they would not be attacking Jesus with their words. And teach us the way of God in truth. Once again, rhetorical question, is that truth? Yes. Do they believe that? No. Neither carest thou for any man. For thou regardest not the person of men. Had they come to Christ with the most serious inquiry and the most sincere attention, they could not have expressed themselves better. But here is hatred covered in deceit, and a wicked heart with burning lips. I believe it was one of the other members of the church that asked me the question about Proverbs 26 and 23 when we went through that, which says, burning lips and a wicked heart are like a potsherd covered with silver dross. I remember there being a question about that. This is the answer. This is an example of that. Good words. Right. Good words. Right. Everything they said about him is true. He is the master. He is true. He taught truth, and he gave no need. He didn't care about which men he's telling the truth to. The truth was the truth. But again, that's what we often need to be aware of. I've gotten phone calls, like I've said on randomly. I do not answer restricted phone numbers anymore. I promise you, if you call me with a restricted phone number, it'll go to voicemail, and you better leave a callback number on your voicemail. I will not be calling or answering restricted phone numbers, because 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years I get a phone call. Hey, are you the pastor of Baptist Church? Yep. You're Dr. Springer. Yep. Man, I heard you're a good pastor. Man, I think you're doing a good job. Can I have a question? I said, of course you can. I begin answering the question, and they're prepared a speech. Well, this is where you're wrong. This is where you're teaching wrong. I called to correct you because I knew you're teaching that wrong. And I said, I'm sorry, I thought I had a question. And the person on the phone responded, like I've said in the past, well, are you not teachable? I am, but not by you. So what about Caesar? Verse 17. Tell us, therefore, what thinkest thou? What is your opinion? Is it lawful to give tribute to Caesar or not. Now, depending on which political party you are, Caesar was not always a real kind person. Caesar was against religion that wasn't the Roman religion. He was oppressive, and people would be tempted to not give money to Caesar. The question is whether it was lawful to pay these taxes voluntarily, or whether they should not insist upon the ancient liberty of their nation, and rather suffer themselves to be disdained on. The ground of the doubt was that they were Abraham's seed and should not consent to bondage by any man. God had given them a law that they should not set a stranger over them. Did not that imply that they were to yield they were not to yield any willing subjection to any prince, state, potentate that was not of their own nation and religion? So the Jews had a standing standard among their religion. We're not going to submit to anybody that's not Jewish. I don't care if they're in government. If they're not one of us, if they're not part of Abraham's seed, we're part of the nation of Israel. We're not going to pay tribute, give credit to any king, no matter what land we're in. We're not going to do that. Now, what about 2025? How do we apply this, and what do we consider for us? The same question for the Christian. Is it not true that elements of our government, including its leaders, are corrupt? Is that true? That's true. Is it not also true that at times our taxes provide finances for things that we would not agree or would not want to spend money on? That's true. And I think would go farther to say there have been individuals in the White House that probably were not Christian, or at least not acting like one. They pretended to be. But, so in a sense, what I'm saying is we can place ourselves in similar thought of what they thought Jesus was teaching his disciples. You don't like Herod Antipas. You don't like Caesar. Is it lawful to pay tribute money, to give taxes to Caesar? Is that a sin? So what's he say? Verse 19, show me the tribute money. And they brought unto him a penny. We can use that. Not a penny. Bring me some money, he's saying. And it happened to be, we'll have to remember, a penny back then. There's individuals and other parables that we studied that agreed to work for a penny a day. Now, boys, could you imagine if I got all 4 of you boys in the back row to say, we're going to spend Saturday 8 hours mowing the lawn, pulling the weeds, mulching, cleaning up the outside of the property, making sure things look really, really good for Mother's Day, and at the end of the day, I am going to give everybody in this room 1 penny. No. Now, minimum wage being about $12 an hour, what if I said, if you work for me hard like that all day, I'll give all 4 of you boys a $100 bill. Who's volunteering? Right? Jack's still saying, nope, I'm good. But I'd have 2 boys. But that penny more or less represented to them, show me your tax receipts. Show me a year's wages. What does tribute money look like? And he asked the question. And he said and he saith unto them, whose is this image and superscription? On top of the left-hand side of a Federal Reserve note, what are the 5 words it says? The United what? United States of America. So teaching it tonight in figure and in type, fairly accurate. That's what Jesus was doing. Show me your tribute money. Okay. Caesar is on that tribute money. And they answered. And he saith unto them, whose is this image and superscription? They said unto them, Caesar's. Then saith he unto them, render therefore unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. There are going to be times that us as a proper Christian will give into and have to pay according to secular authority. The part of that is, of course, taxes. Money, especially the coin bearing Caesar's image, is taxes and tribute money. Christian, pay your taxes. Nobody likes it. But we as an American are under federal law required to pay taxes. Even me as the pastor, there are times that I could get away with not paying taxes. I'll admit it. We have a tax-exempt Amazon account when we order from Amazon because we buy stuff from the church. Jason, when we bought your bicycle, I could have hit make this bicycle tax-exempt because the pastor's buying it. I've known preachers here from the state of Michigan that have done such a thing. Anytime I could get away with not paying taxes because I'm the pastor of XYZ Baptist Church, I'm going to not pay taxes because I'm a pastor. I don't think that's right. Pay taxes. Now, when I buy it for the church, if I would buy it as a giveaway for the church for Vacation Bible School, we're not paying taxes because it was a church purchase. Number 2, civil obedience and respect for governmental laws and authority as long as they do not conflict with God's commands. I'm telling you, because I've already brought the subject up, if federal government or Michigan says, I need to make my bathrooms gender neutral, no. My Bible says they are genders. We have a female bathroom and we have a male bathroom. That goes against Scripture. But if Ralph Oach says the speed limit out through town is now 10 miles an hour, you can only go 10 miles an hour down Main Street, what speed limit should you be going? 10 miles an hour, right? Or if we got crazy and upped it, you can now go 35 miles an hour. I guess we're going 35. That does not interfere with Scripture. Number 3, Caesar's duties and obligations associated with citizenship, such as paying customs, following regulations, and honoring secular leaders should happen. I stated it and I'll state it again. When either side of the political aisle started the "not my president" junk, that was not Christian to do. That is my president. I did not vote for him. I did not agree with him, but there was a time when I can say that was my president. There's also been presidents that I can stand here and say I have voted for them. I'm glad they got voted in. That's still my president. Boys, if they ever reenact the draft, I don't think they ever will. But as an American citizen, if you get drafted, you should go. That's a civic duty. What's God's authority then? Render the things to Caesar to Caesar's, and render to the things God to render unto God's that which is God. Worship, reverence, and exclusive devotion. That's God. Part of the question really was, are they worshiping Caesar? Caesar wanted worshiped. No. But I live under Caesar's government. I walk on Caesar's roads. I go into Caesar's public buildings. Taxes go to pay for that stuff. I'll pay taxes. I won't worship Caesar. Render to Caesar what's Caesar, and to God's what's God's. A question?
No, I was thinking all of this, and like they had no vote.
Right.
Caesar just said this is your tax, and you had no choice. Whereas we have.
I'll pay your taxes now and see if they'll come and
Right.
take your house or put it, garnish your wages.
Or have me play with it as a church.
You'll be in court.
Well, I mean,
You'll
if
be
you don't,
paying the taxes and a penalty.
like you're saying, if you don't pay it, then don't drive on the roads and don't go to the hospitals and don't.
Right. Pay your taxes. Don't worship the president. Moral and spiritual obedience, including following God's commands and teachings. Guess what? God still says obey the authorities. Yes.
Like that podcast we listened to this week, though, I think also you could say like pay your taxes to Caesar, but that doesn't exempt you from your Christian duty to like help the poor.
Right. Right. That goes into what God is God's. Paid taxes to Caesar, but help the poor. Our very selves as humans are made in the image of God, meaning our lives, souls, and ultimate allegiance. Ultimate, the supreme allegiance goes to God. Nothing wrong. I pledge allegiance to my flag. I am an American. But when that government steps over the line of my scriptural responsibilities, which do I follow? The Bible. That's what I follow. And then it was already pointed out earlier, when they heard these words, they marveled and left him and went their way. Jesus won the debate, if you wanted to put it that way. Why? We will win the debate, if you want to call it that, when you simply stick to what the Word of God says. He did not get into the weeds, well, your Caesar's an idiot. He didn't get to the name calling. He knew every sin that Caesar ever committed. He could have exposed Caesar. But instead he said, Caesar's in charge. You pay your money to Caesar, and then you pay other things to God. And I believe they walked away convicted. Render to Caesar what is his. I'll admit, April 15th, not a person in America wants to pay taxes. Right? Nobody wants to. So I believe some of this group walked away convicted because Jesus just told them to be right with God. You need to go pay taxes. But I also believe some of them walked away convicted because they were saying, render to God what's God's. The Herodian walked away and said, well, God's telling me to pay taxes. But the Pharisee disciples would have to begin questioning, am I giving God what's his? I believe that's part of the reason they didn't have anything to say. Because they're convicted. Which one do I pay? Nobody answers. Nobody likes the answer of both. I mean, Harlan, if you go home today and ask your dad, would you rather me take out the trash or just put a new trash bag in? What's he going to tell you? If you're like my kids, I'll just say yes. What's yes mean, Jason? Do both. Right? Would you rather me take out the trash or put a new trash bag in? Yep. What do we do about money? What do we do about Caesar's money? Yep. You give Caesar his. You give God his. You live on the rest. Next week, verses 23 through 33, wait till you read that. Talk about coming up with a ridiculous situation. If you have answered again, lady has 7 wives, or 7 husbands, doesn't have a child with any one of them, and the Pharisees wondered who she's married to in heaven. We'll answer that next week. Father, we thank you.